everyone, to both our Zoom audience and the many folks who are watching us on the Facebook live stream. Welcome to this exciting event brought to you by the Center for Women's Leadership at the Forbes School of Business and Technology. You are in for a treat today as our very special guest, Kate Johnson, shares her incredible experience and insight from both the perspective of a world champion athlete and Olympic medalist, as well as an executive business leader. Leading the interview today, we are delighted to have with us Dr. Maya Zelahich, the Interim Dean for the Forbes School of Business and Technology. Now, before we begin our event, I want to remind you that we are taking questions from the audience. Therefore, if you have a question, feel free to enter it into the chat box or the Q&A box, both located at the bottom of your screen. I'll be collecting those questions throughout the event. I'll respond with a confirmation that I received your question, and following the interview, we're going to address as many of those audience questions as possible. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to our Interim Dean, Dr. Maya Zelahich.
Hi, Brandy. Thank you so much. Hello, Kate. Welcome again. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. We're going to start with our very first question. Major career and life transitions tend to bring with them feeling of uncertainty and anxiety. Many of our students feel this as they transition from military life to the civilian workforce. Now, you've experienced a similar transition moving from the sports world to the business leadership world. What are some key lessons that you learned from this experience?
Hi, thank you so much, you guys, for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I've been looking forward to this event for quite some time now. It's a good question, and it's something just with the Olympics and Paralympic Games most recently happening, I've been thinking a lot about lately. That transition is really, really tough. And I think something that over the course of both certainly my athletic career in retiring from being an elite athlete, I always say going from being the best in the world at something to starting over from scratch, like ground zero, what do I do now with the rest of my life, through to frankly different inflections in my life, right? Career decisions that I've made, returning from maternity leave is another example I can think of. Like, transitions are omnipresent in our life. We can't avoid them. They're always there. And I think one of the things that I've found on my journey that I definitely pull from my athletic days has really been more about the single truth that I love to live by, which is that the only control we actually have in life is how we respond to things, right? So I think a lot of times when a transitioning is happening, we kind of come at it from like it's happening to us, and we feel maybe less in control, less in power of really what it is that we want to achieve in that transition. And I think when you can kind of turn the narrative around and start to approach it from, okay, my attitude, how I show up every day is going to be, the way I'm going to handle this transition is kind of the first lesson. The bigger one, though, I think, is really acknowledging that some of the truths about just change in general, and some of those are, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, just accept that being uncomfortable is going to be a permanent state and way of being as you go through a transition, and embrace that discomfort as I'm growing, I'm learning. And one thing that my coach used to say all the time when we were training, especially when he'd send us away for Christmas break and kind of leave training to us, he'd say, listen, even if you only do 30 minutes a day, you just got fitter. And so sometimes I think it's breaking down success in a transition and in a major life change into just small micro bits. Did I set up 2 interviews for myself today as I made this transition? Did I stick my neck out there and try something new? And I think there's different ways that we can talk about this transition, maybe over the course of the conversation, but it does feel like we skipped the intro a little bit. So maybe we start with just a bit more of an introduction on who I am and why I'm here.
Yes, and that actually ties with our second question. So as you are introducing yourselves, I actually read in the recent Forbes article that you described how you fell in love with the sport of rowing. And as a teenager, you wrote, "I will go to the Olympics one day," in your journal. Now, you did more than this. You not only went to the Olympics, but you helped your team bring home a silver medal for the United States. Unfortunately, when people have big dreams, especially young girls, they will often encounter naysayers or others who discourage them because